Hi everyone, Nancy Godrat here. I am going to go over an example to demonstrate Chapter 17, Process Cost System Materials. In this illustration or example, we have a company, Kellogg, that produces Eggo waffles, and there are three departments that produce the waffles: mixing, baking, and the last department is freezing/packaging. Now, the mixing department combines the dry ingredients, and then we're going to look into the mixing department. How do they make the batter? The information for the month of June is given to us. So they have told us that as of beginning of the June, they had 100,000 waffle units that were not finished. And during the month of June, they started 800,000 waffles. And by the end of the month, out of those 900,000 total units, 700,000 waffles batter went to the next department, which is the baking. And the 200,000 units at the end of the June represent ending work in process, and those are the waffles that are still in the process of being mixed. Now, because we're using weighted average method, please ignore the percentages given to you for the beginning work in process. That information is necessary when we use first in, first out method. So in any beginning work in process percentage of completion, we should be ignored. However, we do need the percentages given for ending work in process, the percentage of completion for ending work in process. So what does it tell us? First of all, let's go over the definition of conversion cost. Remember that the product cost includes material, labor, and overhead. The addition of labor and overhead is called conversion cost. So the cost of labor plus the cost of overhead, manufacturing overhead, is called conversion cost. Why? Because we need labor and overhead to convert raw material into finished goods. Okay, the first thing we have to do is to find out how we can convert the actual units into equivalent units. In order to do that, you look into the units transferred out. Units transferred out are always complete 100% as far as material and as far as conversion cost it goes. So meaning we have added all the materials, labor, and overhead needed in this department to those waffle batters. And the ending work in process, however, we're going to have two different equivalent units. The material is done, so there is no more oil or eggs or anything to be added to the waffle batter, but still we need to use the machinery to mix them. So the 200,000 actual waffle units are equivalent to 120,000 complete waffle batter units. So in this case, we're going to have two different equivalent units. One for material, which is 900,000, one for conversion cost, which is 820,000. So the second step in preparing a production report is converting the physical units given to us, the bottom portion of it, the units transferred out and work in process, into equivalent finished units based on the percentage that is given to you for material and conversion cost. Remember that units transferred out are always 100% complete for material and conversion costs. That's always the case. Otherwise, we don't call them units transferred out. It would be sitting in ending work in process. And as I mentioned, conversion costs are labor costs plus overhead. Beginning working in process is not going to be part of the equivalent units of production formula. Only the units transferred out and ending work in process. Okay, so a production report has 4 sections. First of all, you need to disclose or show to management how many physical units you had to work with. Then convert the physical units to equivalent units of production. And once you have the equivalent units of production, you can come up with the cost of 1 unit, 1 waffle batter. So, and eventually you're going to show the total cost was how much of it was used to create the units transferred out and how much of it is used for the ending work in process. So if we go back to the cost given to us. Oh, and as I mentioned before in part 1 video, every department will have its own production cost report because every department will have its own raw material, labor, and overhead that is needed to complete those units and eventually make them a finished goods. Now, the data about the cost is given to us in this slide. The units we already went over. The cost, the work in process, we spend in total $85,000 on those last month. $50,000 on direct material, $35,000 on conversion cost. Again, please ignore these percentages because we're not using first in, first out method. We're using weighted average method. Now, for the cost, the money we spend during month of June for the units we started into production, in total we have spent $570,000, $400,000 in material, $170,000 in conversion. So if we want to know in total how much materials were cost us, how much material cost us for beginning work in process and units transferred out, we need to add the 50K to the 400K. When we do that, you will see that I'm arriving at, okay, so we already looked into the equivalent units being 900,000 and 820,000. Now we're trying to come up with the step 3. Step 3 says that I need my PowerPoint because these I didn't fill in for on the this page. So let me get the PowerPoints and that will show you the data for part 3. Okay, here we go. So the total material cost, as I mentioned, was beginning work in process at 50K and units introduced into production during June, we spent 400,000 K. So in total, we spent 450,000 on material. How many equivalent units we created for material? We created 900,000 units for material, the bottom line in red. So if we take the 450,000 and divide it by 900,000 units, every unit that went through production in mixing department cost us 50 cents as far as material goes. Now, going back to the data that they gave us, how much was the cost of conversion? A conversion for beginning work in process was 35,000. Conversion cost for units started into production was 70K. Add them together, that's $205,000. And that $205,000, we need to divide it by the equivalent units of conversion cost. And if you remember, equivalent units of conversion cost or equivalent units for conversion cost was 820,000 units. So that's going to go in the denominator to calculate what is the cost per unit for conversion. That means it cost us 25 cents for labor and overhead to produce each unit. If we add the material cost, which was 50 cents, to the 25 cents cost of conversion, we will get the cost of one unit. So 75 cents is how much it has cost us to produce those equivalent units of waffle batter that were in the mixing department. The next step is to show the total cost. The total cost included how much we spent on beginning work in process, 85,000 in total, adding material and conversion cost, 85,000. How much we spent on the unit we started into production during June, 570K. So in total, we have spent 655K. Now we need to show to management, where did the 655K go? Well, we had 700,000 units transferred out that were 100% complete for material and conversion costs, and every unit cost us 75 cents. So out of the 655K, we spent 525,000 of it on units transferred out. Now, ending work in process, always you need to divide it into two sections. How much was the material cost? How much was the conversion cost? Remember, the equivalent units for material were 200,000 units. The equivalent units for conversion were 120,000 units. So we're going to multiply the equivalent units for material times the 50 cents cost of material. That's $100,000 of the money spent for material for the ending work in process. 25 cents cost of conversion cost times equivalent units of conversion. 30,000 is how much we spend on ending work in process for labor and overhead. So when we add them together, 130K gives us the 655,000 that we spent. So let's go back and show you where I got the numbers. In the facts, they told us they spent 655,000 in total, which is the 85,000 plus 570, and that's how we came up with 655,000. Later on, we learned that for ending work in process, the equivalent units for material is 200,000 units, which we multiplied by 50 cents cost of material, and the equivalent units for conversion cost was 120,000 units, which we multiplied by the 25 cents conversion cost. That's how we got the total cost of ending work in process to be $130,000. I hope this helped you understand the material in chapter 17. The 4 steps, when we put them in a report format, will give you the production cost report. This is a report that is only used for internal purposes. Please let me know your questions, and you have a wonderful rest of the semester. Talk to you soon.